ああああああへえ、やるゲームがねえ。このゲームやろっかな。しょうがねえから DLC は買いません。一番簡単にクリアする方法を教えてほしいな。これまずそれを学ぼう。そっから始まる。とりあえず最強武器を調べよう。もう環境が変わりすぎてね、誰もこのゲームやってねえんだよな。そのくせにね、どんどんねアップデートだけはねあるのよ。もうね、最強武器ランキングみたいなね、まず簡単に手に入る、めちゃめちゃ火力がある、そういった素晴らしいアイテムないですかね。ぶっ放してれば終わるような、そんな素敵武器が欲しいんですけど、このゲームね、まともにやる気ゼロなんだよね。ほとんど移動時間だし。やだな、やり始めた瞬間にやる気が失せてきたな。こんなクソみたいなね検索ワードでね調べてるけどね、全然昔の何ヶ月も前の動画しかねえの。エルデンリングモストパワフルビルド。あった。
Hey all, it's Matt, your average gamer. Today we've got a crazy video where we rank the top 20 overpowered builds in Elden Ring. This is
これ見よう。
one
ま
of the
ず
biggest videos I've ever done, and it even includes a cameo of another
簡単に手に入ってね、
being so resisted in the endgame. This plus 10, any armor set works.
冒涜の剣だっけこれ。ブラフマス。
This allows you to not have to use your health flashes
これ
often,
ど
and
こ
the
で手に
range
入
is
るの
no
これ。
slouch either. The majority of players will use this weapon at some point, with
ど
many
こで手に
stating
入る
it's
の。
too good. This is a PvE monster that turned Souls games into a successful L2
これ本
simulator.
当に
The
強いんかこ
Blasphemous
れ。
Blade is the god of all faith weapons and the most consistently good weapon Elden Ring has to offer. This fight doesn't even last long, but it's not just a matter of it not lasting
でも威
long,
力は
it's the
高い
fact that
わ。
we're consistently, most of the time, staying at full HP because the Ash of War is going to heal us all the time.
めちゃめ
This
ち
is
ゃ
an
避けられてる
excellent
けど。
weapon, and it is very much easy mode.
本
There's a
当
lot
か
of
こ
stuff
れ。
about the fact it only sits at the Ash of War, the armor. We have the spells, any of the incantations in the 50. Melania takes between 2
ライ
to
トコメッ
4,000 damage
ト。
per
ラ
hit.
イ
This
ト
is
コメ
quite
ットは
impressive,
確か
and
に
she
強い。
ultimately took me around 4 attempts.
これね、
That's a testament to the
話
build
してるだけ
itself
で。
and not my average skill level. She doesn't see night comets, so you can hit her often
マ
without
レ
her
ニアは
sidestepping the move. You notice
これ
she
に
will
反応する
sidestep
こと
on
ができませ
occasion,
ん。
but this is an AI random reaction after being hit rather than
や
dodging.
べえ、もう見てるだけでお腹いっぱいなんだけど。
Build, especially in larger arenas, because it has so much range that you can often use it from the safety of just being really far away, charging it, having that boost of 60%.
マレニアはこいつに一切反応しません。
pretty much every time. And as we go into phase 2, we were a little bit of a challenge. Keep in mind, on New Game Plus 7, he has 64,000 HP, so that's a lot to get through. But even with that said, the first couple of hits, we had 22,000. For equipment, we have 2 Gargoyles Twin
ガ
Blades
ーゴ
with
イルブラ
7 we
ック。
have Blood
これ
Affinity. We have
強いの？ほんまかそれ。ミミックティアってなんだろう。ガッツライオンズクロー。やべえ、クソほどやる気がなくなってきた。81.10 か。 OP を早期に手に入れるには、いいじゃないですか。でも外人はね、割とずっと同じゲームをやり続けるイメージある。もうその武器はもう終わったんだよ。もうね、ほとんど歩くだけのゲームになるんだよな、これ。何がクソって。火を炎よね。
With this, we can throw the fire affinity onto a great sword, like the claim from Flame Grant Me Strength. We are looking pretty sweet. Heading turtle and control
結局それを倒さないとい
deal
けないの。
and a book attacks. Then God Slayer Seal. Now our main incantation that will be cast. This is our bread and butter
めん
right
どくせえ、このゲーム。
Cheap
め
and
んどくさい。
and Erdtree
全然
favor.
楽しくない。
All seal at least. And then have the star you use with 50 kills every bomb up with 50 kills easily. Most out. These bad feeding the
ドラゴンぶっ殺すねやつね。
Ashes of War item, which you can purchase Buddy slash Ashes of War. You or not all. Another weapon we can throw into the mix to make ourselves even more powerful and versatile. The Reduvia dagger, which can also be obtained very quickly right from the start by easily defeating this invader here.
強いけどさ。
Let's try that in
強いけどさ。
setup. So now you got the curved sword power stance, good for jump attacks and rolling around, but can switch over to
強いは強いけども。
and slice away from a good distance using its weapon
そ
art
こ。
because it's got decent range. If you're ready to really
そうね。
lay it on heavy, just go
遠くから
ham
届
and
くからね。
fucking jelly. That's when you whip out the Reduvia
これ
and
話して
spam
るだけで終わるから
damn
ね。
near instant death for boss fights and larger enemies. The
序
only
盤で
other
手に入るし
important
ね。
element to this build is the wing. It'll stack up again. It's
やべえ、
all
全然
build
見てる
will
だけでもやる気なくなったんだけど。
You can meet a fun and have if you and final setup.
トーマスがいたし。
My personal favorite out of the three. You can start with up. But
大学クソ3の方がおもろいが。
Cross Naginata, which you can obtain
Cross
inside the
Naginata
Gale
ね。
tunnel in Caelid. Now this pairs up nicely with a strong shield. You hold the line behind the shield and poke away. But our main form of
しょうもねえ
attack will
戦い
come
方だ
from
な。
guard counters. Blocking, then countering the attack with a strong bitch slap right back. The brass shield with the barricade Ash of War will give you the ultimate defense. After activating barricade,
すげえわ。
you're essentially an immovable
普通に
object.
受けられちゃうん
You're
だね。
blocking everything. Your defense is impregnable.
My defense is impregnable.
Perfect for guard counters. Now the blue gold then to
確かに
obtain
これは
the
強いわ。
barricade Ash of War, you must defeat the nocturnal nincompoop located right at the one guard counter damage. Now this
ガンタって
brings
し
it
てるだけだ
all
からな。
together with a sprinkle of synergy that hidden
ガンタってマレニアさんに聞かないじゃないですか。
Oh my god! I'm squatching in here!
So you kill the Squancher and the
Squancher.
talisman is in the chest. For the Cross Naginata, you don't have to use this particular Ash of War that I have, but I'm using the Golden Vow Ash of War. Now let me explain quickly why
そ
this
れ
makes sense.
黄
When
金のあれ
wielding
する
both
黄金
the
人使
spear
っするん
and
だ
the
ったら
shield, the barricade skill on
何
the
でもいいのにな。
shield takes priority. So you won't be using the Naginata's weapon art as often in combat. So it makes sense to two-hand the spear before a fight or whenever you can. Pop the Golden Vow, get your buff, then can switch back to your main stance so you can get jiggy with it. Curve solely obtain Naginata. And you want good endurance too. Because I don't spam your feed with videos every single day. So I
ハンバーガーがあ
really
るし。
appreciate if you drop a like on this video if
ク
you
ソ
made
すぎ
it.
だろこのモッド。やりたい放題やってんな。ナーフしないで。今ガーゴイルの両人権強くなったの？これ強いイメージなんかやたら重かった印象があるんだけど。 もうウィキペディアも全然、ウィキペディアじゃねえや。エルデンウィキも何の情報もないわ。なんかね、ガチンだかなんだか使ってみたけど、面白くないんだよな、大して。まだ魔力が特化できてないからなんだろうけど。ただ全然やる気にならん、このゲーム。全然やる気にならん。だ今日はなんかやる気にならねえな。全然エルデンリング始めたはいいけど、あまりにやる気にならん。いや、配信したい気持ちはあるんだけどね、やりたいものがないんだよな。エルデンちょっともう見たらお腹いっぱいになったわ。なんでこんなにめんどくさいんだろうね、エルデンリングって。全くやる気になんないんだよね。本当にね、なんかめんどくさいんだよ、このゲーム。よう何周も何周もするよね。すごいと思うわ。
Another Elden Ring.
これね、強いビルドがあってもね、それゲットしに行くのがだるいんだよな。
And the stats for this, a lot of the weapons of choice. We have the Cross Naginata and the Spike Spear. Now both of these obviously spears that both do bleed type build up.
Cross Naginata.
The Cross Naginata, in my opinion, is going to be the better option in terms of having a spear because it gets the better light attack combo with its horizontal swipes. It gets more range and actually gets better scalings. But the reason why we're not using two of them is because you can only get one per playthrough. So if you actually are a New Game Plus, you're just better off just going with a second Cross Naginata. But the Spike Spear is still going to do a fine job. And it actually is a pretty decent weapon as well because it actually does do strike damage, which is very unique because no other spear actually does do strike damage. But when you're power stancing, you're only going to really benefit off that piercing damage, which is perfectly fine because piercing damage is arguably just the best damage type in the entire game. A lot of enemies are just very weak to it. And specifically with power stancing spears, it's amazing because you get very quick movesets that can actually go pretty far, and they hit at the exact same time. So your DPS and the damage in total is just going to be very high. Now both of these obviously do scale with dexterity. We have a dexterity based build, so we're going to have both of these be keen infused. Now the Cross Naginata, we're going to have this one on infused with Impaling Thrust. Now Impaling Thrust is a very good complement to spears themselves because spears don't really tend to get good poise damage or actually good staggering potential. But Impaling Thrust is an Ashwar that actually can do that. And for only 9 FP, you can stagger larger enemies and do 30 stance damage in just one hit. It is actually very beneficial. Now as for the Spike Spear, we're going to have this one infused with Thunderbolt. Now Thunderbolt is a lightning-based Ashwar of which scales with dexterity. But the reason we're going to go with this one is because we're lacking a projectile option with this build. So having Thunderbolt is actually a nice projectile. It doesn't stagger very well, nor do much poise damage, but it can do some decent total overall damage and some nice DPS. And it doesn't really cost that much either. So if you're in a situation where like you have to hit something at a distance or you're trying to kite enemies out or hit them one at a time, just using this is just going to be a very solid pick. Now you'll also notice that I do have the Mystery Cord in my back pocket. That's for two reasons. One, because we have it infused with the Golden Vow, and Golden Vow is just going to be an Ashwar, which is going to give me more damage and more defenses. And it is an aura buff, so it's going to stack with all the other buffs that we actually will be using as well. And the Mystery Cord is actually going to be the highest critical damage weapon in the entire game at 140 crit. You can just get a whole bunch of this riposte and backstab damage. So if you ever do end up getting the poise break on an enemy, you actually can just switch to the Mystery Cord and just get the riposte. It will rarely happen because you're using spears. So the main purpose of having the Mystery Cord is just for Golden Vow. But if you ever do get into that circumstance, switching to it would actually benefit you greatly. Now we also have the Dragon Communion Seal. It just has very low requirements. It doesn't weigh anything. It's just nice to have, just to cast some basic types of incantations. Now as for the armor, the only one you're going to worry about is the White Mask. This one will actually just boost your damage by 10% if you just proc bleed on a nearby enemy. As for our talismans, we do have the Lord of Blood Exaltation, which basically works the exact same way as the White Mask. Be bled out weapon, much more damage. It also does give you plus maximum health. If you do struggle staying at maximum health, I would just recommend going with a talisman that just boosts your neutral game, whether it be stamina regeneration, more equipment load, or just more defenses. And in your Wondrous Flask, I recommend just going with the Dexterity tier and the Thorny Crack tier, which works very similar to the Millicent Prosthesis. It's just more damage on successive hits. But you do get this one later in the playthrough, so until you actually do acquire the Thorny Crack tier, just going for something that boosts your neutral game is just going to be really nice, like stamina regen or just health regen. Now, as for our spells, we are going to have...
始めたはいいけど全然やる気にならねえ本当にさびっくりするほどやる気にならん。
Now then, as
これなんだどうせ
now then,
DLC 来
as
たら
most of us are eagerly
全く
awaiting
変わ
for
る
that elusive a battle mage build, the overpowered greatsword, which is possibly one of the best weapons in the entire game, as formerly said by yours truly, is in the game.
ゲットするのがもうラニーイベント完遂とかやりたくないんですよ。
will actually explode multiple times against your enemies was in the game. So things like the cannon of Hamer or the gavel of Hamer to do an immense amount of area effect damage. Spells like Stars of Ruin to follow your enemies, dealing hundreds of damage in quick succession. The phalanxes to defend you at any point and stagger, especially up you that we're discussing. Frost is becoming a very common part of my builds as of late, because I'm not gonna lie, I slept on Frost for quite some time, and it is starting to become one of my favorite status effects that you can apply onto your enemies. Bleed will still be king in terms of damage output, but Frost also has its abilities, like I said earlier, increasing the amount of damage that your enemies take, whilst also slowing them down, making it easier to dodge, and just improving the ease of life with most boss fights and just any fight in general, ultimately making it one of the most overpowered aspects in the entire game. Again, as with pretty much any of the builds that we've spoken about, there's obviously a large range of combinations that you can run. If you obviously want to deal with heavy damage, then yes, run things like the Dark Moon Greatsword. But if you want a more sort of like samurai sort of vibe, an ancient warrior that's been possessed by like moonlight powers, you can also use things like the Moon Veil. Or if you want to sort of use the powers of the stars, like I say, the Wing of Astel is also a really cool weapon to use. All of them deal thousands and thousands of damage with nearly every hit and break enemy stances incredibly easily. So that is also just another plus on top of what was already a massive plus with just the build itself. Again, much like I said with the Draconic build, I can literally go on for hours and hours as to why you should be using this build right now, but I would be stopping you from using this build right now. So go and use it right now. Yeah, that is essentially the 5 build.
確かにいいね。楽しそう、いろいろ魔術が使えると。完全にやる気を失った。今日は気分が乗らないからいっか。始めたはいいけどやるゲームがねえや。夜はトルネコやろう。今いいや、何にも思いつかない、やることが。やる気が起きん。